I'm curious as to how you got interested in classical music. You studied in BC and then you went to Juilliard. So how did that all happen? How did you get interested in classical music?
Well, both my parents studied piano when they were young, and my father went on to do a Bachelor of Music degree. And he ended up teaching music in public school as well as teaching piano privately. So he was my first piano teacher, and because of his private studio, I heard music in the house growing up. So I naturally felt inclined towards it. And around my early teen years, I started becoming much more serious about it. And I never really expected to get into Juilliard. That was a long shot application on my part, so it was a really pleasant surprise. And really, after my bachelor's degree was when my career started getting a lot more involved, and I started receiving many more performance opportunities and invitations.
Hmm. And were you aware of Robert Silverman? Like I know that you won the piano concerto competition. Were you aware of him before? And
Absolutely, yeah.
uh,
He his I think he's a really important figure for especially the UBC School of Music and the Vancouver or Western Canadian scene more broadly. And I had been traveling to UBC during my teenage years for piano lessons with Dr. Corey Ham, with whom I studied for my master's degree as well. So I was certainly aware of Mr. Silverman then.
so how does that translate into you coming here to the act and performing with him? I know there's going to be some conversation and things like that, but what does that look like for you to get to be with someone who obviously had a great influence on your career?
Yeah, it's a real honor to share the stage with him. The invitation to me actually came from Mr. David Gillum,
Mhm.
the violinist with whom I will also be performing, and it was quite a fortunate uh, schedule coordination because I'm only in Canada for a short time before traveling abroad again to Japan and to Spain and to some other countries in Europe, and I'm based over there now, so I don't come back to the west coast of Canada
Mhm.
terribly often anymore. But I happen to be in Vancouver to perform Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto with the UBC Symphony Orchestra and Maestro Jonathan Gerard, and that happens the night before the performance in Maple Ridge. So
Okay.
I feel fortunate that I was able to make it work amidst all my traveling.
That's fantastic. And so yeah, you have relocated to Europe. So where are you based in Europe now?
Well, I'm enrolled at a school in Detmold, Germany, and
Okay.
that's where I have an apartment. But I've also recently been accepted to the Accademia Nazionale di Santa Cecilia in Rome. There's a teacher there who I also really like, so I'll be traveling between the two cities when I have the chance to between different performance obligations.
Have you ever been to Rome before?
The first time was last month for the audition. So I spent only about 4 days there. So I'm looking forward to being able to explore the city more in the coming months.
It's such a beautiful city. Yeah, it's one of the most magical places on earth, I have to say. You're
Yeah.
going to enjoy that a lot. What are you going to miss about BC?
Oh, there's so much. I definitely feel at home here, even coming back for the few days that I had this past week. I really love the natural surroundings of BC. I obviously loved being on the beautiful UBC campus and being so close to the beach and close to Pacific Spirit Park. And I made a lot of wonderful friendships with fellow students at the school and also with faculty members. So yeah, I certainly I look forward to every chance I have to come back.
And your parents obviously still live here.
That's right.
Okay, that's great. I'm curious about your process. So I guess it's kind of like preparing for an Olympic sport, right? Preparing for the competitions. Um, and I'm just curious about your process. How do you prepare? What goes through your mind when you sit down at the piano?
Well, with regard to competitions, I tend to try to treat them just like any other performance and not get too caught up in the competitive aspect of it and the fact that I'm being judged by a jury. So I tend to try to just go into them as if I'm sharing my music with an audience, as in the case of any other concert that I'm doing.
Okay. And when you're sitting down, do you have any rituals or anything? Like, are you superstitious in any way and you need to do something in a particular order?
I don't, not especially. I do have a pre-concert routine that I do and include warming up and ideally just taking some time away from screens and other distractions to get in the zone for the performance. But no, I don't have anything terribly specific.
Okay. And what music do you listen to? I'm just curious, like in your spare time.
I wish that I listened to more music. Generally, after a long day of practice, I don't have uh, a huge amount of energy to listen more. I tend to enjoy the quiet after a full day of work. When I'm traveling, it's generally classical.
Mhm.
Occasionally, I'll listen to some other genres. I know my parents grew up loving the rock of the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
So when I come home, I listen to some of that. And for a while, I really enjoyed listening to electronic music when I was younger, but these days it's mostly classical.
Right. And do you ever attend any concerts, like for
When I
other
have the
performers?
chance to, when I have the chance to, I do. I love going to concerts. I don't have as much time to do so now, but that was one of the highlights of studying at Juilliard in New York was the incredible concerts that I was able to attend.
What's a highlight for you when you were in New York City? What did you see that stood out?
Oh, it's difficult to narrow it down. One of them that really stands out to me was a performance that Martha Argerich gave of Prokofiev's Third Piano Concerto at Carnegie Hall with Maestro Antonio Pappano. And I believe that was one of her first concerts in Carnegie Hall for nearly a decade. So it was a really special occasion, and there was an unforgettable energy in the hall. And she's really a legend. So I feel very fortunate that I got to see her live. I saw probably about 20 operas in my time there. They have a wonderful student, or they had at the time a wonderful student ticket discount. So it was relatively affordable to attend the opera. Um, and yeah, many concerts at the New York Philharmonic, many concerts at Carnegie Hall too
Mhm.
that loom in my memory. But I think Martha Argerich's was probably one of my favorites.
Okay. And if you could share the stage with someone, who would that be?
Uh, well, I've loved performing chamber music, the opportunities that I've had to do so. So, um, some of my favorite string ensembles, I think of an ensemble like the Emerson String Quartet. They're an ensemble that I find myself listening to very often. So yeah, that would be a pretty tremendous honor to share the stage with someone like some wonderful players like themselves.
Okay. And just one last thing. What do you hope that people who are in the audience will get from your performance on October 28th?
Well, I love the program that's being presented. I think it shows many facets of Bach's wonderful musical spirit. And so I hope to provide my contribution to that great presentation of his musical style. So the two works that I'm playing, both of them are in a minor key, so they have, I would say, a bit more of a somber and serious mood. Bach can write some incredibly joyful music, and the audience will hear some of that in the violin sonata in E major that I'm playing with Mr. Gillum. But the two works that I'm playing, I think they have a kind of intensity and a rhythmic drive, um, and sort of a somber, um, almost reverential at times kind of character that I hope I'll be able to transmit to the listener.